So did you receive your P45 this week?
I did, yeah, it did come through. I guess that's the hot topic of the week, right? We're being made redundant.
Yeah, we saw it coming. Although saying that, I don't know if you was the same, I was thinking about this earlier. Even though we work for a startup and 90% of startups fail, I still thought it was going to make it deep down because there was so many people behind it and we had so many like near-death experiences that I thought, you know what, there's so much momentum behind it and there's so many backers that it'll be fine. And then, it wasn't fine. It's come to an end.
All was not okay. Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's in the startup world. I think people are drawn to the core message behind the business much more than the other sort of frills. It's great for experience, but it's always going to come down to like the team or the thing you're working on more than, I don't know, necessarily like your career progression. And so when you're in that environment where everyone is so intrinsically motivated by what you're working on, it feels like nothing can stop you. And the business had gone through crowdfunding with Crowdcube, I think 3 times by the time we'd seen it through.
Yeah.
And we'd had customers, and I'm sure we'll talk in different episodes about the highs and lows of various parts of that project. But for the longest time, I think we all believed it was going to make it. And while the writing was on the wall maybe for a little while now, it's still weird how final it is after living in limbo for so long.
Yeah, so it was nearly 7 years old, I think, the company.
Yeah.
We both joined about 3 years ago, so 3 years into it when it had received some big funding enough to employ a lot of people. And yeah, so we part of the team that I guess sort of accelerated the technology, was developing new technology. We'll explain a little bit more about who the company is, I guess, in later episodes. I think in summary, we worked for what we called ourselves a deep tech startup, which is some of the buzzwords that...
It sounds very mysterious.
Yeah.
Sus tech, green tech, deep tech, stealth, let's throw a few more in there.
all the buzzwords. New technology, basically, to transform a certain sector, shall we say, that is very out of date. And and here we are. It hasn't made it. So we've received our P45s, and here we are. And we've decided to rather than follow the normal trend of end a job, find a new job, we've teamed up and decided that we could probably make a good run of it by ourselves by doing our own thing, because we think we work well together, and we have some, when we put our minds together, we're like an idea factory, and we come up with these great ideas, and we'll give some examples as we go through.
You've put some lovely intonation in some of those statements about, we'll probably think we can do it. And we generally work well together. Episode 1 and already questioning the foundation of what we're going out to start.
There's no doubt in my mind we'll probably make it.
Definitely, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe we should talk a little bit about kind of how we got here. Maybe just like a brief background on us, our experience, and why we're embarking at one of these most stressful, pivotal moments in a person's life. We have decided to make it that much more stressful by trying to start a business. So do you want to, I don't know, maybe just talk us through a bit about, maybe let's say like, what was your degree? Why did you get into a couple of the jobs that you've got into? And then what was the problem that drove you to want to start this, and our chip in similar fashion?
It's interesting you said what was your degree, because I don't think my degree was very relevant to what I did. So actually, I was never A grade student going through school. I was always sort of a good B, never outstanding in the class. That wasn't me. And going to university, when the sort of the deadline for the applications came around, I think I I only thought about it a week before the application deadlines came through, and someone said, you going to university? I said, yeah, probably, And I was like, well, you've only got to the end of the week to put your application in. I was like, oh, I should probably look into that then. Flicked through the uni prospectus books, whatever they were, and picked mechanical engineering and electronic engineering because that's, I've always been sort of a hands-on type of person and like to build stuff. Went with electronic engineering, so all of my degree was in electronics and circuit boards and, that sort of level of detail. But I didn't choose that as the job. I went more, I got offered a job with Ultra Electronics in Greenford in London, who do, I think I'd be working on aircraft landing gear circuit boards for Airbus. But I was on the late shift, like 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that, in a lab in a basement for at least 6 months, had to travel to Cambridge sometimes. And at the same time, I got a job offer with a company that was doing maintenance on systems at Heathrow Airport. And that sounded much more interesting to me. It was out and about, he was fixing faults, he was fault finding, and everything was varied. So I went with that route. So I completely, on that first pivotal moment, I left I left the electronics behind and went with more engineering that I found fun and interesting. So that was how my career started. It was completely different to what my degree was in, and then ended up in working on baggage handling systems after a few years with this first company at Heathrow and Gatwick. Did a bit on Manchester and Stansted and those airports. Ended up being head of electrical engineering. For this company that went under. Sorry, it didn't go under. It massively scaled back when COVID hit because airports weren't spending any money. There's no money for projects, so they had to sort of get rid of all their projects teams. And that's when I saw the opportunity for the company we've just been made redundant from, which I very nearly said the name of, and it was I found them because a couple of ex-colleagues were working there. And I was intrigued. I actually just one of my ex-colleagues had changed their WhatsApp profile picture, and I was looking for someone completely unrelated. I was scrolling through the list of contacts, and it caught my eye and thought, "What's that?" And went into it and saw the company name. And I Googled the company name, looked it up, saw another person I'd worked with work there, and my eyes went wide. I was like, "This is what I want to work for. This is, making the world a better place." Green tech, high tech stuff. This hits me right in the feels. I must work for them. So yeah, and that was 3 and a bit years ago, and that's where we are now. And then and then I met you.
Some say they're related.
Yeah. Our paths aligned.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say it wasn't the degree that you did that put you on this journey. And I think that's probably something that everyone can relate to an extent. Is it's not necessarily the path you set out on, it's the junctions that you don't expect to be going down. A bit like you, I wasn't necessarily the most keen on going to uni. I was always an A student instead of a B student. He says very big-headed.
Seen the type.
But I think because of that and being in a very academic world, I loved design and technology. That was my thing at school. I'd always in the workshops. I'd find any excuse to get out of study sessions to go to the workshops to work on projects or just extracurricular stuff. And so especially doing design and technology at A-level, you get the impression that you can be a part of this maker world, even at a kind of higher level. I was originally looking at apprenticeships, so I didn't want to go to uni. I wanted to do something hand-on. I had this kind of stigma in my head that you'd go to uni and only do theoretical stuff, and especially the kind of top performing academic institutes, it felt like engineering was more about maths and calculus and all of the theoretical physics behind how these things worked, rather than actually doing the stuff that I enjoyed. I got over that by visiting unis and seeing what they're about. A lot of them were quite practical. And the place that I landed on, partly because it was, a convenient location, partly because they had all the facilities that I liked, was Brunel University, and that's kind of West London near Heathrow, for anyone that doesn't know it. They had a really cool engine lab, and I was really into cars. I still am into cars, but it's more of a hobby now than it is a sort of professional avenue. And I'd started on an automotive engineering degree, it was one of the only places that offered it. They had like a cool motorsport lab, and it seemed like the place to be. And within 6 months of starting that degree, I decided that automotive was not for me. And there's a whole host of reasons behind that we can unpick another day. So I was like, right, mechanical engineering is very broad. It won't limit me. It's a straightforward switch. The modules that we've been doing are very similar. There's a lot of overlap. So it was, okay, I'll do mechanical engineering. And I was originally on this integrated master's, so it'd be 4 years with a placement year, so 5 years. I'd come out with a master's in mechanical engineering, having worked for a professional body for 13 months. After my placement year, I went, no, don't want to do mechanical engineering. I'll finish the degree. I'm not gonna leave it now. I've already got too much time invested, and I want to go back to the root of why I got into this, the design, the holistic mindset, looking at things from the bottom up. And that was kind of why I did engineering in the first place, because if you can understand something right at the root of how it works, then I feel like you can design this solution much better. So I finished my degree in mechanical engineering and started my master's in what was called integrated design or integrated product design, still at Brunel. And interestingly, I'd seen this shift in the university where it seemed like more funding was going to the design department. The design department had all of these cool projects going on, this 3D printing lab. There was a bit of a rift between engineering and design, and I wanted to be where the grass seemed greener. And I started this degree, this master's, and it was amazing. It was absolutely everything I dreamt it would have been. I fell back in love with design. I fell in love with new things I'd never heard about. The lecturers were top of their game, working in the field whilst lecturing. It was amazing. And it was this brilliant international cohort. So I was working with people overseas, all across the world. And I loved it. And while I was doing that, I came across this job listing for, I was looking ahead. I thought I'll finish my degree in 6 months. I'll see what's out there so that I'm ready. And it was the place that we used to work at now, he says with a tear in his eye. I was drawn to the business for the most ridiculous reason. You'll find this out about me as we go through the episodes. I really like typography and fonts and logos. And I opened this job listing because I thought, that's a cool logo. I like that. And then I read the job description and I went, okay, this ticks a lot of boxes. I'll go. And the whole interview day and the process and the team was amazing and all of the things that we've talked about. And even whilst there, my position changed. I was in one role early on for a short period of time. A little bit of that was because, the business didn't have the structure in place to have people where they necessarily needed to be. And as the business went through these changes, I became a very different role that drew on some of that mechanical engineering experience, some of the design engineering experience, some of the just like social skills that you develop as a person on different projects. And so as part of that shift, began interacting with you a lot more. I think for my first sort of 4 months, we didn't really cross paths an awful lot.
No.
And it was after that restructure that it was like, oh, there's this guy I've got to interact with now to get the sort of the wheels turning in the business. And through that, spent a lot of time together, got chatting, realized that we have a lot of similarities, maybe a few too many. And this common theme kept emerging, this thing that really irritated us, this mindset that we seem to both share and want to change and encourage other people to think about. And so that's how we got to here.
So we both hate the mindset of having to buy something new so frequently. Well, a good example is the Stanley Cups craze that went out, the reusable water bottles. Reusable water bottles to start with were a good idea. It stopped people buying plastic bottles and it meant that you can reuse it, same as reusable bags or anything like that. But then they become a fashion statement, and then there's more energy and resource going into something reusable than it would be to buy disposable. It's a real gripe, and it's something that, on top of other gripes that I have about energy efficiency and how we can live more efficiently, that I've always had a passion for doing something about. I remember when I was a kid. Not a massive chocolate fan, but
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up because I was literally just about to say you have to tell this story. Okay, I'll shut up. I'll let you get on with it.
so not a massive chocolate fan. So Easter time, my grandparents, who used to like to buy Easter eggs, knew that they'd buy me an Easter egg, and it would sit in the cupboard for 6 months, and eventually I just give it to my sisters or someone else to eat because it didn't do much for me. So they started to buy me a gift instead for the value of the Easter egg, and the one thing I wanted was this brand new technology, which was showing my age now. An energy saving light bulb. So they were it wasn't LED, this was the compact fluorescent tubes which were coiled up. So you'd switch them on and they'd take a good 5 minutes to warm up to get to the light output. And I remember...
These are what people notoriously think of as crap. Like, you think, energy saving light bulb, oh, I don't want one of those because this thing is going to take ages to warm up. It's going to take ages to be bright. It's got people generally hate them.
Yeah, but I was like so excited that I got 100 watts of equivalent lighting for 20 watts in my bedroom. I didn't even pay the bills. This must have been, I don't know, maybe 11 or that sort of age. I was so excited about it. I probably spent more time in my room thinking, only using 20 watts of light tonight, rather than 100. And I even had a dimmer switch fitted that didn't work with it. So you had to turn it on quickly to get through the rapid strobing effect to get it on. But it was worth it. It was worth knowing I was making a change and I was doing something, I was using less energy than it would be with the rest of the house who had these like standard light bulbs. But that was fine. I felt like I was doing a good thing. So I think from only looking back, I realized I've always had this mindset of wanting to do things better.
I can see this as like a comic strip, the what's the skeevy 11-year-old up to in his bedroom, and it's just you with this like strobing dimmer switch going, I can't believe it's only 20 watts.
Yeah. And you had to get the dimmer in the right position because otherwise you got a bit of a hum if it was too far one way or the other, so you had to like time it right.
That's brilliant. I think that says a lot about you as a person and why this message is so important to us both, is looking for even the small ways that you can, cherish the objects that you're given, the things that are around you. And the water bottle example that you give is brilliant because they're called reusable water bottles. Like the normal water bottle that you buy off the shelf isn't reusable. They shouldn't be considered disposable. There's no reason that plastic can't be reused time and time again. It's a slightly thicker plastic that they use on these so-called reusable water bottles, but it's this, we'll come back to how everyone was taught to waste and the natural aversion that people had in the sort of 1920s to actually throwing plastics away because it was a new material, and how sort of mainstream producers tricked everyone into throwing things away that they weren't otherwise throwing away so that they have to buy the newer version, and planned obsolescence. And all of these themes will come up when we talk about products and pick things apart. But I think at the core, that's what our mindset is all about, is giving people the tools, the knowledge, the products that they can cherish and hold on to for a lifetime, for generations, passed down through their families. We'll look at products that we love, that we think already fit these examples. We'll look at products that we hate, Apple, that like to greenwash and pretend they tick all these boxes. And we'll talk you through our journey as we try and start a brand that abides by all of these philosophies.
Yep.
It's a challenge because we're under the pressure of a pretty tight deadline.
Well, we have no job now. We're self-funded. We've spent a bit of time working together on a few little projects, which we'll jump back to at different points in time. But this is it now. The stabilizers are off. We've been given a big push, and we've got to make it. So this is it. This is the real deal. So this podcast is about our journey. Every week we'll be giving an update on what we've done this week, and we'll, I'm sure, dip back and give a few little nuggets of stories of where we've come from and things we've tried.
More or less, yeah. I would just add, and boy, are there some things that we've tried, because, you know, there's some pretty exciting projects, I think. We've planned everything out, and we've got stories that we want to tell you. And some of the things we've worked on have been colossal screw-ups. I mean, of the highest order. But we've got this, I like to think we've got a good failure mindset. And it doesn't mean it's easy failing at the time, but as long as you learn from it. So we're gonna relive some of those traumas. There's gonna be a lot of emotion. I'm quite excited. I'm a little bit scared because there may be some tears as we go through this, but I'm really looking forward to kind of living this journey quite transparently.
Yeah.
And as you say, we've got 3 months. We kind of said this thing needs to be proven, at least to us, so that we know if we're going to have to go and get a job, a real job, and be members of society again.
Yeah.
Or if we can make it on our own.
On that note, our sponsors for today's episode is us. Please check out all of our social media pages. We are the Invention Junkies, which you can find on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. What am I missing?
eBay, Etsy.
eBay. Yeah. And now this podcast will probably be on all the places you can find a podcast, but we've not actually looked at how we're going to publish the thing first. So wherever you found it, then the other episodes will be there as well.
If you found this podcast, it's out there somewhere. You've already come across it, so just go back to the same place.
You got it.
Yeah. All right. Invention Junkies out.
Nice. See you next week.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.